Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Systeme-io podcast with me, Natasha Pinto. Join us as we discuss all things digital marketing and entrepreneurship. Here, online business owners take us on a journey, how they went from zero to launch. If you're starting your business journey here with Systeme, you've already taken a pretty smart first step. So joining me today is Ron Stefanski. He's an entrepreneur, online course creator, occasional professor, blogger, and YouTuber. Welcome, Ron.
Hey, Natasha, thanks so much for having me. I appreciate you guys having me on here.
We are thrilled to have you here. So can you take us a little bit back in time? Give us the history of how you came to be where you are today. How did you get started?
Yeah, so I basically had a career in sales for about, I don't even know, like 8 years, something like that. And I hated it, didn't know what I was going to do. And then in 2008 in the US, we had the housing crisis. And during that housing crisis, I basically lost a job and I kind of messed around with websites at that time. Didn't really do too much with it. Created my first one, which was kind of like a failure. It didn't really do much. And then what happened was I kind of discovered my love for digital marketing, and because, I built the website and that was cool, but then I was like, I got to get people here. Right. So that was kind of like a cool thing that I didn't know about before. So I kind of got into marketing then, enjoyed it. And then I thought, I'm going to just kind of change my career and completely pivot. So then I spent about 8 years in the corporate marketing space doing that sort of thing as a digital marketing manager. And then in 2014, I basically had a side hustle that was doing pretty well. It was just a website I had built, and it allowed me to take the opportunity to kind of take a huge risk and leave my job. And I did that. And then, ever since, I've just been working for myself and working on a whole portfolio of different websites and helping people create and market their own online businesses.
Is this something you studied? So do you have an academic background in digital marketing as well?
Yeah, so my bachelor's is a bachelor's in business administration. My master's did have a focus in marketing, and then I was actually going through a doctoral program, and I was about 2 years in, and then it was like I wanted to. My end goal was to be able to work for myself and to be able to teach on the side. And then I don't remember who told me, but someone's like, "Hey, you're already doing that, stupid." And I was like, "Oh yeah." And then I remember there was a project where they wanted us to do some things, and I didn't feel comfortable because I was going to be giving a company advice, and I knew my heart wasn't in it because I was so focused on my own my own projects and stuff. So I was like, you know what? Let me just take a pause on this. And that pause turned out to be permanent. So yeah, I have a background in marketing, but I will say most of the things that I'm doing and what I've learned by, far and away has just been while being in the field. Most of it was not reading from a book. You can read everything you want from a book or read from blogs, but doing it is a totally different thing. So.
All right. So what was that side hustle that you started? What was the site?
So it started. So I actually the site itself, I can't disclose the URL, and the only reason is because I've actually sold that site since.
Okay.
I sold it for 277,000 this last year. So
sure.
It was a good exit. It was actually It's a whole different story I can get into if you want to, but I was supposed to sell for 500,000, and then some things happened. So kind of a cautionary tale. But so that one I can't disclose the URL for respect to the new buyer. But essentially, I can give you the basic of it. So it was in the employment area, my employment niche, and there was just a group of people that, in a particular space that needed some help getting employed. And I created a whole site focused on that particular area. And honestly, I remember at first I was like hoping it would make like $500. And I remember that was when I left my job, is when it was making about like $300 to $500 a month. And I was like, oh, wow, I'm going to take the risk and give myself 1 year because I'd saved up money to take the risk. Again, this was in 2014. And then I just said, I'm going to do it. And I'm not even kidding you, I think it was 11 months in. So, and I remember I was literally in tears at one point because I was like, I'm going to have to go get a job. I don't want to, and all this other stuff. And I was really struggling with the failure part of it. And then God stepped in, and I ended up getting the site had gone viral actually on Facebook.
Oh, wow.
Super random. There was a community on Facebook that I reached out to and said, hey, can I share this in your community? They said yes. And then after I shared it, it went completely viral. And then it was like, wow, I got all this traffic. And then obviously viral loops, if anyone's familiar with them, they go up and then they go down. So while it was up, I kind of, tried to make the most money that I could. And then I figured out like, hey, I got to make this more sustainable. Like I really have something here. And then, yeah, I just kept building it out and it just kept growing from there. So
I think that's also a perfect segue because I'm about to ask you, how do you cope with failure and the obstacles that you face? So
yeah. So anybody that's going to get involved with entrepreneurship in any capacity is going to have a crazy amount of failure. It's just part of what it is. Even still to this day, there's sites and things that I'm working on that definitely haven't done what I was hoping and are essentially kind of failures from what I originally thought they would be. I haven't given up on them yet, but failure in general, like I said, I think it's completely inevitable. And I think that anybody that is dealing with this needs to understand that like the way I look at failure may be unique, but when I look at failure, I only consider something a failure if I like basically did something, didn't learn anything, it didn't work out, and then I just kind of like quit and moved on to the next thing. That's to me, that's truly failure. So if you're a person that's out there and you're thinking, hey, I'm trying to start an online business or website, whatever it may be, anything, creating courses, whatever it may be, if you consider it like an iterative process, meaning you're going to start and you're going to have a hiccup and it's not going to work perfect, I promise. But as long as you keep moving forward and you learn from that mistake, then you're not failing. You're learning as you're going and things aren't going exactly how you expect. But as long as you keep learning and you stop making those mistakes, which is what I did time and time again, eventually you stop making stupid mistakes, which is great. And I've made, like, for example, the example I always give, I think it was like my second or third website that I made. It was called pictures of babies in the womb.com. That was the site. And it was a lot of search volume there. And it was going to be images that I literally stole off of Google, put onto my own website. And I was just going to get a bunch of search traffic for it and try to get display ads to make money, which is it's wrong for so many reasons. You can't do that because of copyright. And the whole thing was just so stupid. But when you start off, you don't know what you don't know,
Yeah.
So you make some dumb mistakes along the way and just stop making them and you'll be successful eventually. You just got to keep at it.
Okay. That's some really practical feedback, I think.
Yeah.
And then how do you deal with obstacles and specifically the COVID-19 obstacle that sort of presented itself to everybody on the planet? I know lots of brick and mortar businesses have really struggled, but there's been a significant boom in online industry, especially like e-learning. That industry is supposed to have seen some like 400% growth in some areas and like some places.
Yeah. So COVID-19 for me was really interesting because, so again, my main site, and I had a whole portfolio of sites, right? So I have a bunch of different sites, but my main site, which was also my main moneymaker at the time, and like I had mentioned, I had already sold off.
Yeah.
That particular site was in the employment niche. Well, as we all know, guess what? COVID-19, not that great for employment. So while some people thrived during that, and some of my websites did do pretty well comparatively, but that particular site got absolutely hammered. It didn't help at all. The traffic drop was like 70, 80%. So it was actually a rough few months there. And in addition to that, I have to tell this story a little bit just because it's kind of crazy. So,
Go for it.
so I actually had dealt with, there was a algorithm update. I'm trying to remember exactly what year this was. I think, this would have been late 2020. There was an algorithm update that actually impacted the site. So that was like reducing the site's traffic by like maybe 10, 15% at the time. So I had that. And then I also, and this is again in late 2020, right before COVID really hit, I had an issue with Google AdSense was saying that I was sending over invalid clicks, which for those that don't know, if you have Google AdSense on your site and somebody clicks, you can make some money with that, right? Display ads, you can make some money. But the problem was they would essentially say, okay, this particular month I was making, $10,000, $15,000 from the site, which was awesome. And then they were like, yeah, you made this. And then at the end of the month, they would literally say, oh, actually 20% of those were invalid and 30% of those were invalid. And then it actually got up to the point to where it was all the way up to 60% of my clicks were invalid.
Wow.
So the crazy thing about this, to elaborate, is that I didn't change anything on my end. And I checked my analytics. I checked servers. I hired experts. Nobody was like coming to my site and sending all this invalid traffic. So I don't know what policies changed at Google, but I'm always going to kind of point the finger at them that they changed something for whatever reason that I got caught up in. I really still to this day don't know what it was. So I ended up having to rectify it. I switched over to Ezoic, which is a display ad network. So they were able to help me. But yeah, so I dealt with that, right? And then that was at the end of 2020. And then we had the pandemic. So it was kind of all these things, one after another, and then we dealt with the pandemic, and the site was going down quite a bit then in traffic. And I was like, you know what? Because I was focused on my other sites, 1 Hour Professor, my main one that I work on today. That's the one that I was really in 2020. I was kind of like, I should probably start focusing on my personal brand, because things like this, like, hey, Google kind of just did what they did. And then, all of a sudden we have a pandemic, all these things out of my control. And I'd rather have something that is not just my home base, but I actually have more control of it. It's my audience and my people sort of thing. So I started to do that just to kind of switch the focus. But yeah, that site wasn't going too well, and my heart wasn't in it. And I said, you know what, I'm going to sell this thing. Do you want me to get into the story about the
no, go for it.
Okay.
Yeah, please do. I think it'll be really interesting.
This is a cautionary tale for anybody. It's actually pretty interesting. So the site, I don't remember exactly what the multiple was. When you sell a site, for those who aren't familiar, you usually get a multiple of, per every month you make X amount of dollars and you get a multiple of that, right? So like if you had $10,000 a month in profit, you get 370,000, that'd be a 37 times multiple. So I basically, working with the site or the buyer, I had put the site up, and I ended up getting an offer for 500,000, which was, it was like 496 or something. I was like, can you bump it up to 5 just so I could say $500,000, because it's so cool, right? So it was like the best day of my life. And it was like super exciting. I was like, I can't believe that I built something that someone will pay this money. It was life-changing money. Super excited about it. So was going through the whole process of, selling the site. And when you do this, you have to hand everything over. You have to hand over the keys, right? So like Google Analytics, Search Console, all these different things. And then you also have to hand over all the partnerships. So this is where it got a little dicey. So everything was going fine. I'm handing over all the partnerships, and these are all the affiliate partnerships and just everybody I've ever worked with, that said, yeah, the site's good, and I was making money with it. Anyway, I'm making money. I got to turn around and give that now to the buyer, because that's only fair, right? They want to make the same amount of money. So I was working on that. And then I'm not even kidding when I say this, in the final hour, it was like the day before the site was supposed to close, and everything was taken care of. And then there was one partner that I had never had a problem with ever when working with them. But they literally said, we're actually not interested in partnering with the site anymore. We're going to turn off access to our API. So I was actually pulling data from their site to show on mine. They said, we're going to turn off the API. We're not interested in working with you anymore. And oh, by the way, this is going to happen in 24 hours. So the reason why that was such a huge deal is because that was like 50-60% of my revenue, right?
Oh,
so now you have a situation where a site that was worth 500, oops, it's not worth that anymore. So that was an absolute nightmare. It was literally one of the best days of my life, followed by one of the worst, right? There's worse things that can happen, but you can imagine the highs and the lows here. Welcome to entrepreneurship, right? So, we actually I worked with another company to implement their API. And then luckily, I actually told the buyer, I was like, hey, I guess I'm out, because this totally screwed up the deal. And he's like, oh, I'm still interested in the site, which I was surprised at. And I was like, okay, well, let me figure it out. So I partnered with a new partner. We used their API, pulled in some data, didn't make as much money, but still made decent money. So at the end of the day, we ended up settling at about 277 is what he bought it for. So anybody that, if you're ever looking to sell a site or anything or build something out, just be aware that things really can go up and down. And you can imagine taking a $23,000 loss in 24 hours. Pretty rough when you're self-made, don't have a ton of money, you worked everything with yourself, built it all up. It's pretty rough. So that's what I dealt with. So as you can see, you asked how I deal with failure and all these things. Like it really is a roller coaster. And you kind of just have to have a really thick skin. When I have failure and those sort of things and all that. I mean, let yourself be depressed and upset for a day or two, feel all the pain, deal with it. Don't bury yourself with any substances or anything, just feel all of it, let it happen, and then just take a deep breath, get back up, keep going. That's the only way that you can really make it happen. I am a testament to some bad things happening. So
I think developing that thick skin is really important.
yeah, and you develop more and more as you go, I will say.
Definitely. And then can you crunch some numbers for us? So you've told us how much you managed to sell that, like that was your main source of income. So how much do you make off of your 1 Hour Professor site, for example, compared to what your first website made you?
So it's really interesting. So I am one thing that so again, and I'm not trying to be like self-promotional here, but if people go to onehourprofessor.com, I actually have income reports on my site. And I have been basically having those income reports published ever since 2014. So that particular site will tell you everything you need to know in terms of how it's grown. But at this point, I believe that 1 Hour Professor itself makes about $7,000 ish every single month. And actually, really interestingly, I'm seeing an error when I try to go to my own site right now. Okay, there we go. Sorry. I have it all broken down. So last month, June of 2021, which is the last month here that I reported, I had $28,934 in revenue, $11,153 in expenses, and net income of $17,781. 1 Hour Professor was about like $7,000 to $8,000 of that. I don't know the exact numbers, but it's in the income reports. So,
and that's what you're planning to focus on a lot more, right? So you're hoping to see a higher return on investment there.
Absolutely. Ever since I started working on, and I'm looking at my screen here really quick. Hold on one second. No worries. Ever since I've started to work on 1 Hour Professor as a site, every single month from the prior month has been a record-breaking month. So it actually has gone up. I really started actually, it's been about a year. I started right around July of 2020. I will say, for those that are familiar with Ahrefs, I had a domain rating of like 52. That's now up to 72. And I was making around, it looks like around like 1,500. And then now, last month, I'm sorry. So last month it was about 8,600 is what I ended up making. So every month it's been growing, and my 100% of my focus is on that because I wanted to have my own personal brand. Like I said, as you may have gathered from this interview already, I've been burned a few times and I'm tired of getting burned. I want to have my own community, my own people to talk to. And I really, nothing, money's great, whatever. But the most gratifying thing to me is that when someone contacts me, and I've had this happen quite a few times, and they say, hey, I followed your advice. Thank you so much, because now I'm making X. And this is what helped me. And whatever you're doing, whatever it may be, they mention like, hey, this helped me so much. And even if it's like, if I can help your family, pay off a car payment every month, that's a huge win for me, right? Or it's really cool if we can help you pay off your mortgage every month. Those are the things that really keep me going. The money's great, but those are the things that really keep me going. And
do you think? So I take it on purpose, you are so genuine, you are so open and honest on your 1 Hour Professor site, on all of your blogs, on all of your YouTube videos. Do you think that's why people look to you for advice?
Yeah, I've got multiple times people have said, hey, I've come across all these different people, and you seem the most like real or legitimate or transparent. And I've always stuck to that, because I don't like, originally when I started, again, this was in 2014, I was reporting on 1 Hour Professor. I was reporting the income made and the time spent at the same time. I was actually literally with my phone logging time to show people like, hey, this, and then, it took this many hours and I outsourced this much, to really show people how much time. I've since stopped that because it was so laborious to do that. But basically, I've really built myself on transparency, because, especially, oh God, YouTube's just a cesspool with people standing in front of cars and mansions, and you could do this too. And I just do not like that. I do think, especially if I can do it, I'm no brilliant person. I think anybody can do it, but I'm not going to sit there and show you all the shiny stuff and say, hey, you can have this in 24 hours. That's not how it is. Again, I've been at this since 2014. So.
Okay, I think that's really amazing, and it's good to have more people like that out there because people
Yeah,
are
I don't
distracted
think I could
with.
live with myself any other way, honestly. Like I don't know how some people sleep at night. Just pushing $1,000, $2,000 course and just BSing and promise. I don't know. I can't do that. So kudos to the people who can. That's just not what I would do, and I just can't.
Okay, and then so you use YouTube quite a lot. What is your main purpose on there, and what other branches of social media do you make use of?
Yeah. So YouTube, so this all started when I was really focused on in 2020, July 2020. I really wanted to focus much harder. I'm sorry. So actually, let me step back. January of 2020 is when I really pushed on YouTube. And I did that because I thought, you know what? I've got this blog thing pretty well figured out. Like I kind of understand blogs. And this is with my other portfolio of websites, right? I wasn't really focused on the 1-Hour Professor website, if you're following the timeline
Yeah.
here. So January 2020, I was basically like, hey, I am making quite a bit of money with this online business stuff. Things are going pretty well. And I've had a lot of people email me, even though my website, like I was just doing an income report. I've done an income report every month since 2014, right? So that's all I was doing every month. And I'm getting all these emails of people asking questions, like just burying me in emails. And I was like, you know what? Maybe I should create a YouTube channel because at least this way I can give an answer to the question, whatever it may be.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe they'll find it on YouTube and then they'll kind of connect with me a little bit that way. Or, people that send me those emails, I can point them towards that resource.
Yeah.
So I started really focusing on YouTube in 2020. I think I had when I started around 4,000 subscribers. I think now it's last I checked 16,000 or something like that. So in this particular space, reasonably, decent there. I'd actually like to get a lot more into it. I did take a temporary pause because, as we talked about before the call, I moved from Chicago to Las Vegas, had to go buy a new house, had to spend a month in a really small Airbnb. So it's been a little bit of an adventure. And then once we got in the house, I've had to do a million different things. So it's been a little bit of an adventure, but yeah, so I do want to get back into YouTube and I will be doing that here soon. I think maybe 2 videos a week-ish is what I'm thinking. So YouTube would be one. I actually use, not a lot of people talk about it, but I use LinkedIn. I'm crazy on LinkedIn. I connect with everybody that sends me emails that is in any company, any facility, or any can eventually we can work together in any capacity is what I meant to say. I usually connect with them there. So I use LinkedIn quite a bit and connect with a lot of people on LinkedIn. Those are my 2 main ones. I also have a Facebook community for the 1-Hour Professor, folks that, if they sign up for my email list and anybody that's interested, if you get a free course from me, it's all in there. You can get the information. So I have that. And then really that's probably my main ones. I'm technically on Instagram, but I'm just not so great at updating it. I wish I updated it more. So I'm trying to do that for a more personal glimpse into my life. I just haven't been all that great at updating. So believe it or not, Natasha, I actually hate social media. I do not like social media. I've never liked social media. I would say I like LinkedIn because I think it's very professional focused and that is more enjoyable to me. But the personal stuff and all that, I just see it as time suck. And I think social media personally is a little bit evil at this point. So I'm not really a big fan of social media.
I'm not the biggest fan of it either. I'm a teacher by profession originally. So I've spent most of my time hiding my social media from small children and then watching the effect it has on small children.
Yeah. We could get that could be a whole other podcast on the effect of that. There's too many things going on with social media, especially with this OnlyFans stuff that I don't know. The generation that's growing up in this is going to have a hard time. They don't realize it yet, but they will. But anyway, so yeah, that's really my focus. So mostly YouTube. Yeah, YouTube and LinkedIn are probably my 2 biggest ones.
All right. And then what does the future look like for you? So do you have any short-term goals that you're looking towards and any long-term goals, like a way in the future? What do you plan to do?
So it's really funny that you asked this. So one of the things that I do is I set up short-term goals like 3 months ahead of time, I guess you could say. So I literally have, and you can't see it, but I literally have my desktop right here. It says teach people, help people, and then goal by 8/1 is 10K monthly revenue on 1-Hour Professor. So that's actually a goal that I see every single day when I wake up, and I only make one goal on my desktop every single time. So that's my goal currently, is to get 10,000. to do that. And then obviously, teach people and help people. That's the other idea there. So that's my goal with that. Long term, really what I'm trying to do and kind of where I'd like to be here in, let's say, a year's time or so. I want the 1 Hour Professor blog to continue to grow. It's growing really well now. I'm doing a crazy amount of guest posting. So, I actually think I've done it on your guys' platform. Not 100% on that. I think I have before. But anyway, so yeah, my plan is to have that particular site continue to grow. And I do have to create courses. I have a few free courses on there, which is great. And people love that. But I also need to make some money, and I need to share more value too. That's the other thing, is there's some things I'm holding back in my head that I need to get out there. So I need to create some more courses and focus on that. So I want to do that and have my blog continue to grow. And then I also, I do want to get much more involved in YouTube in the coming year or so here too, because when I did it before, honestly, I was kind of doing the minimal amount of work, and I'd give it to an editor and kind of that'd be it. But now I'm stepping into it and doing kind of like more lifestyle, and my wife is going to help with all the production and the editing. So she's taking a lot of the work off me because she knows that I can't do it. I don't have the capacity to do it. So she's going to help with that too. So really my plan is just the site and that, and then my other sites that I have, I really want to sell off actually. A few of them, and I'd probably like to have like the 1hourprofessor.com site, and then probably like maybe 3 or 4 other sites, and have teams really assigned to those and really have them buttoned down. One thing that a cautionary tale I'll tell people. So my thing in the beginning was, I built a site, it was successful. And then I was like, oh, I can replicate this. And then I hired more people to do the same thing in a different niche, just because really it's about creating content and monetizing it. Right.
Yeah.
So I did that over and over and over. And then I think at one point I was at like 12 or 13 different sites. And it was like, I was realizing, oh my God, like this is just like any of them that are successful, because some are duds, but any are successful, they take so much work. So I ended up over time, I realized like, hey, scale down. And now I'm trying to get to like 3 or 4 different sites that all are high quality and all have hundreds of thousands of visitors every month. And I think, I'd probably stop there. And if I really wanted to build another one, maybe I'd sell one of the sites and then build another one in its place. So yeah, I'm trying to kind of pare down my portfolio of sites at the moment.
So you said at one point you had 12. How many do you have in your portfolio at the moment?
Yeah, so I had 12 active. Now I have about 7 active now, because I sold the big one that I had mentioned, and there was a second one that I had sold as well. So that one wasn't as big of an exit, but it was decent. So I had that one. But yeah, so I'm just trying, like I said, the goal is to get to 3 or 4. I already know for a fact there's 2 sites that I have that I'm going to sell, and I know I'm going to sell them because I haven't touched them in years, and they still pay me thousands every month, but I haven't touched them in years. But I know over time they're just going to keep decaying and things are going to go bad. So I want to sell those to someone who really wants to take advantage of them. And then I also obviously would just rather take the money at this point, because a whole other tangent, my wife and I are thinking about getting an Airbnb and start trying some stuff there too. So yeah, we got some plans, but we want to sell those sites over time here and kind of get everything buttoned up in the portfolio. So.
Okay. And then a few silly questions and shorter questions.
Sure.
Is there one book or podcast or resource that you'd recommend to our listeners? So anyone just starting out with their online business?
Yeah. So aside from my own stuff, obviously, no, realistically, so the book that, and this is not a book that people haven't heard of. It's 4-Hour Workweek by Tim Ferriss.
Yeah.
Was the book that, it's kind of funny because I was familiar with Upwork, which was called Elance at the time. That's how long ago, to date myself. I was familiar with it already, but he kind of put some things in perspective that I wasn't thinking of. So that was really good. In terms of podcasts, if you're talking beginner level, it's a little bit tough, to be honest with you, because I feel like Smart Passive Income with Pat Flynn used to be a great one. And he's got some good stuff in the archives, but as successful as the guy is, he's not really focused on making sites, from scratch anymore. So I feel like some of his stuff, he's not in the trenches, right? I'm still in the trenches. So I try to be in the trenches. There's not a ton of people that are still in the trenches. I'd say probably Authority Hacker would be one that's still in the trenches, but they do get a little bit more advanced with their discussions. So yeah, those would be the ones that I'd probably recommend for beginners, I guess.
And then is there any advice you would give to your 18-year-old self, looking back from now?
God. I would really have a talk with my 18-year-old self because I was a little brat. Let's put it that way. We'll make it podcast friendly. Yeah, I would probably. So the thing that kills me the most about all this and everything I'm doing, and I don't know that I would have had successes quickly or whatever, but I wanted to become an entrepreneur and I wanted to actually create a website since I was probably 15 or 14, right? But me, a little bit more background, like in school, I was like a 2.0 student, right? Like I was like a C-ish, C+ type student, and math, not my thing. Like well, at the time, especially, I wasn't analytical at all. So I was really intimidated by the idea of coding and just the idea of creating a site and all this stuff. So I would say the biggest thing is even to this day, I still don't know how to code, but you don't need to know. And even at that time, I think I could have probably gotten some hosting and maybe a theme to just build a site. I wish I would have just kind of gone for it. So anybody that's on the fence, if you're really on the fence, just start looking at it and really just take some action of some sort. Don't just sit there and wait and wait and wait, because it took me until I was about 30 years old to where I really jumped off the cliff and went for this. I wish I would have done it earlier.
Okay. And then you teach online and then in person. So which do you prefer?
I definitely prefer online 1,000 times over. It's very simple why, and I can very briefly explain it. So when you have to do it in person, what do you have to do before you get there? You have to prepare things. You have to drive there. You have to park. You have to walk, blah, 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 right? Call me lazy, but I would rather just walk in, sit down with a nice shirt on and grade and teach and that sort of stuff online. So absolutely prefer online. And interestingly enough, you get paid the same, which is just kind of crazy to me. So definitely online.
Okay. And then last question, where can our listeners find you?
So if you haven't gotten it already, I try not to be too self-promotional, but so onehourprofessor.com is the site that you would want to find me on. And then also you can look at that on YouTube, just 1 Hour Professor. Like I said, I haven't been super active on there lately, but I will be much more active. And then I'm trying to push people towards my Instagram too, which is also under 1 Hour Professor, because I do want to give more of a glimpse into my personal life, because I feel like I'm kind of like a robot. I'm always just talking about website stuff. It's guess what? I have a life outside of this. So those would be the different places for sure.
Okay, fantastic. I will put those tags in the comments. So Ron, thank you so much for joining me today, giving me your time, and thank you to our listeners. If you're watching this on YouTube, hit that 5-star rating and subscribe to the channel. If you're listening to this on a podcasting app, subscribe to the Systeme podcast so that you never miss an episode. Systeme is a digital marketing software platform packed with all the tools you need to grow your online business. Thank you.
Thanks, Natasha. Yeah, it was great being here.
Awesome.